One of the things people are surprised about is the small micro percentages of response rates, and they're normal and they're even considered good. Because like if you create, let's say you do a direct mail campaign to a cold list and you need a 10% response rate in order to make the money work and get your return, I'm telling you, don't even do it. It's going to fail. You're not going to get a 10% response rate to, I say you'll never. There's always an outlier somewhere that'll get that. But you're not going to get a 10% response rate to a direct mail campaign to a farm list of colder prospects. And if you need a 10% to make the money work, then you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not going to achieve that, right? So, for example, email open rates for broadcasts, roughly 15 to 30%. If you're getting 30%, you're doing great. You're getting 40%, you're well above average on open rates. Click-through rates on delivered emails is about 2 to 3%. All right, so, and then landing page conversion is about 5%. So you could send out 1,000 emails and think you're really crushing a marketing campaign, and 200 people could open it. You might only get 6 people to click on the link. And then they go to a landing page, and if you convert 50%, you got 3 leads. And some people go, holy shit, that did not work. I sent out 1,000 emails. And actually, that's a really good campaign right there. So you got to have realistic expectations, because really sophisticated marketers aren't getting, 50% click-through rates. Not on like your generic broadcast. Now, personal one-to-one email is a little different, but I'm talking about marketing broadcast. Website conversions, 0.5% to 2%, and roughly 50% or more will be unqualified of the leads. Direct mail campaigns to cold prospects, 0.5%. In B2B marketing, 0.5% is considered good. 0.5% response to B2B marketing. 2% with phone follow-up is considered very, very good. So if you're getting, I know some of our members are getting 4% response rates. You got to understand, if I wrote into Direct Marketing Magazine, they'd put me on the cover for those kind of response rates, especially for the micro lists. And you would think that's not a Herculean thing. 4% is nothing, but that's where it's at. Webinar show-up rate. If you get 100 people to register for a webinar, don't be surprised if only 30 show up. Now, we can do things to make it better, and then at the end of a webinar, 5%, maybe 10% will book an appointment, and that's if you sell the appointment. That's if you do everything right on the webinar, all right? So I'm not trying to discourage you. You just got to go in with the correct expectations. Google paid search, 3 to 7% click-through rate on the ad is considered very, very, very good. And then 10% on the actual page. So we get 3 to 7% click on the ad, they go to the website. If 10% convert, that's good. All right, and then only about 20% of them may be qualified. So you got to sit down and do the math, and what does it cost per click, and what is that going to be per lead? And so for those of you who are with the Done For You services, Will Byers is here. We've moved Will over to that department, and he's been doing strategy sessions, because a lot of what we need to do is really kind of reset expectations, because we're doing the digital marketing, and there's some figuring out, and there's variables, and you got to be very, very, very you got to be understanding of these metrics, because there's only if we can get that last bit, 3 to 7% to click on an ad, and 10% convert to a page, and 20 to 50% are qualified, we're doing a very good job for you. But some people don't, and it's a matter of expectations. All right, so like example on a Google pay-per-click campaign. If the goal is to get 3 to 7% click-through and 10% opt-in and buy, 50% will not be qualified depending on what you consider a qualified customer. And if you're looking for softballs, which is the person calling up and saying, I'd like to buy a managed services contract, you're going to be lucky if 10% are qualified, because that's just not how those leads come in. They just don't. The goal is to close 20 to 35% of those. So over 3 months, if we got 97 clicks at a cost of $60 cost per click, you're going to spend $5,820, okay? If 9% convert, these are real numbers from a case study, by the way, that gives us 9 leads at a cost per lead of $647 per lead. If 60% are not qualified and say there's 4 marketing qualified leads, that's $1,400 per marketing qualified lead if you close 25%. So one new client could cost you $5,820 in marketing costs. That's not sales commission, that's just marketing costs. And that's considered just about right. So that's what I'm saying, like, don't go into this thinking you're gonna get leads for $100. Because you're gonna, if that's what you need, this is not a good campaign for you to run. Does that make sense? So when you're thinking about it, you got to go in with that. So a Bing campaign, they're a little cheaper. Same thing, same goal conversion, same everything. Close 20, 35%. Over 30 months, if we get 97 clicks, that's $19.40 per click. You can see the math as we go down. So one client's going to cost about $1,900. The downside of Bing is you just don't get as much volume as you will on Google, right? But it is cheaper, okay? Now, if we do a direct mail campaign and we reach the decision maker 15% of the time and 10% of those conversations book. So we call 100 people, we talk to 15. That means we book 1 to 2 appointments. Is that okay? You understand that, right? So every 100, that's about right. If we close 25% of the first time appointments, the goal is $1,000 per month in new MRR. If we mail 50 a week and the SDR mailing costs are $20 per prospect all in, $13,000, and that's worst case. I mean, I'm really padding that cost, right? If we have 98 conversions, 10 book an appointment, that's 10 first-time appointments. That's a 1.5% response rate. Roughly 25% become clients. If we add 3,000 in new MRR, the average cost per client is $1,000. The average, or the first-time appointment is $1,000. Average cost per new client is about $4,333. And this is why when people say to me, direct mail's too expensive, direct mail doesn't work, they're full of shit. They've never ran the numbers. Because I'm telling you right now, over COVID, the cost of marketing and advertising went up exponentially. Not just from what you have to spend on ad spend, but the performance. Because when if you are, like LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn, you can run like an in-mail campaign. Well, each one of you set your own LinkedIn algorithm. So you might say, I don't want any sponsored in-mail at all. Or you might, depending on connections. So LinkedIn has all these advertisers who want to spend money. And they can't let all the advertisers send all their in-mail all at the same time, because you'd be like, WTF, right? And you'd get the hell off of LinkedIn. So it's like slow, and so not only, so the costs have gone up, but your exposure is not as frequent as it was, because more people are using digital marketing. More people are trying to sell to your customers. And it's not just your competition. It's every other vendor out there in the world who's trying to sell to that small business owner, right? So you got to understand these things cost. So lead cost averages, direct mail with an SDR could be $800 to $1,000 per qualified first-time appointment. Google pay-per-click, $678 for a raw lead. 3,452. These are some averages that we see for a qualified lead. Bing is a little bit cheaper, as you can see, and LinkedIn, 236, or qualified leads are a little cheaper. Now, the problem with LinkedIn is just getting that damn thing going, right? So all of this, I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds. You can talk to my Done For You team about these and get more information, but all this digital marketing is not as cheap as you think. So the question then is, what do I do if this costs too much to generate leads? And I stole this from Brandis. I don't know where Brandis is. If you want like funny memes, follow Brandis on Facebook. She's like always where is she? Okay, there you go. So I stole that from you, darling. I told you I would, right? So that's your marketing plan. There's your marketing budget, right? And that's what you expect, all right? So 10 ways to get a higher return on marketing. Be meticulous in knowing and tracking what's going on with your inbound leads. Here's one thing, guys. Go back and fix your phones and your forms on your website and how you track, because if you go spend $10,000 on Google and you don't have your phones fixed and you don't have a way of tracking those leads and you don't have follow-up, you got a big, giant hole in your bucket. Like, patch that first, all right? So do that. Use retargeting. Mike has done sessions on retargeting. You can talk to him. Those are like people who hit your website but don't call or opt in. Those leads are cheap. Don't dismiss break-fix clients. Remember I said earlier, you got to qualify the company not the opportunity. Don't give up on leads too quickly. You got to follow up, follow up, follow up, as I've already demonstrated. Raise your prices. Most of you need to do that. So that's another way to get your higher return because you can pay for it. The other thing is always offer a premium version of what you sell. This is a strategy I've talked about a long time. So if I'm sitting down with a prospect, I never want to have a single solution. I'm never going to sell them less than they need. Let's be clear on this. I'm never going to sell you less than you need, but I'm never going to have a single solution. I'm always going to have an A-B option, where A is good and will solve your problem, and B is the upscale luxury option. If it's presented properly, that premium version, anywhere from 10% to 30% will buy. I said 20%, but like right now, we like 30%. Like, so when we sit down with a new prospect, depending on where they are, we're going to offer them the toolkit and MSP launch, or we're going to offer them MSP launch or accelerators. And roughly 30%, it's like right now, it's actually pretty high right now, it's 38%, but I'd say more conservative, usually around 32% will take the higher priced option just because we offer it. So that's a way of raising our prices without raising our prices. Does that make sense? So go back and like after hours support, advanced cybersecurity, documentation, strip out maybe not advanced cybersecurity strip out, but strip out things that are sort of extra. Will Nobles, he has a VIP experience, like you can buy just for certain executives, and it's really expensive. I don't know what it is, but he has a VIP option that you can add for just a few key people. They get like a concierge dedicated technician. So those things, those are the ways that you can raise prices without looking to raise your prices. Target larger companies with bigger budgets. Hello, right? If I'm going to go rob a place, I'm going to go to a bank, not a convenience store. I mean, if I'm going to go to jail, why not go big, right? I mean, it's amazing to me. People go in and rob convenience stores where they know the cash is all locked up in the back in a safe. There's only a little bit here, and the guy behind the counter probably has a shotgun. And they still they're dumb criminals. So don't go robbing poor people, target bigger companies. And I'm going to tell you right now, selling a $1,000 a month contract selling a $10,000 a month contract isn't 10 times harder than selling a $1,000 a month contract. It might be a little harder, maybe there's fewer of them, but it isn't 10 times harder. So target people with bigger budgets. Make every client more valuable by selling them additional solutions. Improve your sales process and calculate ROI over 12 months, not 1 to 3 months, all right? So for example, if you have a follow-up, if you look at your follow-up and you say your cost per lead, you see MSP 1, MSP 2, right? If MSP 1, same cost per lead, same number of qualified leads, 70%, let's say all the numbers are the same. But MSP 1 can close 35% of first-time appointments, and MSP 2 only closes 10%, same average sale. You can see the difference. That's $288,000 more in revenue just because the close rate is higher. So that's why I don't want you just focusing on the leads. You got to think about how you follow up and how many you get first-time appointments, how many that you actually can close, right? If you look at this and you say MSP number 1 does a much better job at getting the appointment because they answer the phones live and they follow up within 2 minutes and they book those appointments, they have automation, let's just say everything else being the same. That's a $288,000 difference as well, even if the close rate was the same. So this is why I'm saying these different percentages. Don't just think more leads. Think about what you do, what's your average price. For example, if MSP 1, 50% are qualified because they are a little bit more loose in their definition of what a qualified lead is, 20% are qualified, that's a $216,000 difference. So again, I want you to start thinking about this. Again, this is the advanced lead generation piece. Most people just say, run ads, bring me more leads. But you want to be a little more sophisticated than that in your strategy because this is where you can make sure you get a good return on your investment and can keep plowing money back into marketing.